So just a little background on what EPIC does, who we are, how we've gotten introduced to the project, and my goal for this meeting is to ask a lot of questions. This is kind of considered our screening call, and I like to just ask away if that's okay, if we can use the time in that way. But just to back up a little bit, so the Environmental Policy Innovation Center, I should say we're a remote organization and I live in Philadelphia. So I work on projects nationally though. So I have a couple in Colorado, some in Utah, California. We are a national organization, so although I'm geographically located here, I travel. And my other colleague, Steve, who will be working on this project, is in Littleton, Colorado. So he is kind of he'll be right there, closely located, but I love any and every opportunity to travel as well. So with that, so the Environmental Policy Innovation Center, we are an environmental nonprofit. And we are, like I said, one of the water technical assistance providers in the country. I like to make this clarification that we are not affiliated with any governing or regulatory agency. We are not working for CDPHE. We don't work for the EPA. We are a third-party nonprofit organization. However, we are funded through the EPA through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And so we are a grantee of bill funds, and we are also funded by a number of philanthropic grants to offer this technical assistance to water utilities in the country. And as far as eligibility or the communities that we work with, we typically work with smaller communities, some that are overburdened and maybe in disadvantaged communities or are just in need of some assistance in a variety of assistance. So the assistance that we provide is multifaceted. We act as sort of temporary public works employees. So we can offer project management assistance. We like to consider ourselves as like trusted advisors more than anything else. Again, not in any compliance or regulatory fashion, but just really seeing how we can be of assistance and meet the needs of our clients. So we offer that project management experience. And then I think what's also important to mention is we do offer financial assistance. So we bring money to the table and to see how we can assist with pre-development efforts related to getting infrastructure projects all the way through to a funding application. So that seed funding or, planning, grant, you could call it, is what we also bring to the table. And so just for an example, we work on a lot of lead service line inventories. We contract out for PERs. We contract out for design work. We have recently gotten into the financial auditing space and financial services. And we, offer whatever contractual work that we can offer to support a project through the funding application. And so we were connected with you all through a request from the EPA. I believe CDPHE sent a request through to the EPA for technical assistance, and then they sent them over to us. So that's a little background. Does anybody have any questions about just who EPIC is at this point?
Do you guys provide engineering services or the capability of engineering services?
We don't provide engineering service ourselves. What we would do is do a subcontract with an engineering firm for design or reporting.
Yeah, you would project manage, essentially knowing the scope, knowing the information, then would reach out to an engineering services that could accommodate the task of preparing for those funds to prepare for ultimate build out, I'm assuming. So you're kind of like that basically it's like a CGCM in that aspect type thing. You're controlling all the management and all the paperwork and getting people on board that are necessary.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, we do that. So we can do it. We can do our like procurement in a variety of ways. So we have what we call like, we can do a request for proposal. We have a bench of providers in all across the country that we can send out bid requests to, and we can take the steps of procuring a firm. Or we can also enter into like a tri-party agreement with a firm that is already procured through the water utility, as long as they've gone through, of course, we're using federal funds, so we would have to like, document all of that federal procurement policies. But yes, to answer your question, yes.
Yes, okay, that makes sense, what role you would play, which I think Jesse and Marcy could correct me, but I think those are necessary needs that I believe will come up in this whole overall project, so.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it. So I guess that's a good kind of lead in. So I'll just give you my understanding of the project. I met with Kira. So of course, Kira gave me their perspective from CDPHE and as much background and information as they shared. And then I actually found the video recording on your website from your last meeting in December with the SRF folks, Kira, and I just went ahead and listened to it, and it was really helpful as far as background knowledge to get me up to speed. But I definitely know I have questions and some like gaps to fill in. So I'm wondering, oh, Sheila, do you have a question or you want to interject?
I do. Do you subcontract out also the financial portion of it, the auditing that has to be done?
Yes, that is something that we offer as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we just got into the kind of financial auditing realm of things. I work on some projects in Virginia, and right now we're soliciting bids from a couple of CPAs to do that kind of work. So we were kind of keyed in that could be some of the need that you have for this, like for your project, for your distribution work. So yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to start asking some questions, maybe get your perspective on how this project and this process is going with CDPHE and kind of what you see as like the immediate next steps. So would anybody mind giving me a little run through?
Jesse?
Sorry, I was on mute there, double muted. So yeah, basically we're at the point where I'm sure you know the enforcement order has been doled out not only to our district, but to the property developer who still technically owns the infrastructure. And we've determined through the preliminary engineering report that pretty much a total system replacement is required. And we've gotten consent and at least some buy-in from the property developer to move forward with that alternative if we can fund it. So funding, we've tried to get as much of our ducks in a row ahead of time as possible, creating the sam.gov account and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're kind of to the point where the major roadblocks to qualifying for funding, being eligible is one thing, but qualifying is another. And we're delinquent on state audits going back to, I think, fiscal year 2019. And we're also aware that prior year's audits to that are improper. So that's where, that's why we need help with the audit situation. Is there are books that we don't have access to because they're in possession of the property developer, and that may require litigation to get books out of them. But we also don't know exactly what the state auditor truly wants from us. They've tossed a couple ideas around over the years of, well, maybe we can just kind of reset everything and you can just do 2021 and later after you took over for the developer. or, according to state law, there is no provision for that. So we really don't know exactly how far back we need to go or how in depth it needs to be. But because we're delinquent on the audits, state law requires that the county treasurer withhold any pending or future tax revenue that we might generate. And that also affects obviously is going to affect our eligibility for grants and things like that. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
the biggest roadblock I see currently is we need to get the audit situation cleared up before we can even think about moving forward with any more funding paperwork or applications.
Right. So what was the last conversation you had with the county auditor? Like, did you leave that as a to be determined or?
So yeah, the the mechanism by which that happens, so the state auditor's office will notice the delinquency, give the district a chance to cure it, and if deadlines are missed, then they instruct the county treasurer to withhold the revenue since they're the ones that are collecting it, and then they just have to stand by until the OSA says, okay, everything's hunky-dory, you can release the funds. Um, so the conversation would have to be with the state auditor. The person in the local government division that we've always dealt with is Crystal Dorsey. And I've asked her numerous times in 2024, for feedback and updates and letting her know that we're having these kind of conversations with EPA and contractors and consultants and everything, getting to the point where we're about ready to be able to undergo an audit. Now what do they actually expect from us? And I've just gotten radio silence for pretty much all of 2024.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that seems important. Um,
Well, and realizing that there is a big portion of again, if we could get a specific answer that where does the audit begin because of the responsibility of the district, which essentially the district are homeowners
mhm.
that have volunteered to be part of the district to try to rectify our water, the water of all the homeowners. So, but just a clear definition, tell us what you want and we'll tell you what we have. And I think that's where there's no clarity on that. There's no specifics. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to it'd be hard for an accountant to write a statement of work not knowing what the scope of the project actually is, and
yeah,
we're
it's
just
a
as
full
clueless
audit,
as.
just, exemptions and what is the details? What are the finite details that need to be produced?
Right.
Because if depending on where that is and what their requirements are, some of those, like Jesse alluded to, some of those documents, the district has no information. It's being withheld. So if they're requiring that, then it causes a delay because then there would be legal action to get that information. We all have ideas, we all have understandings, but we have no clarity.
One thing I do know, Ryan, about that is, what the state auditor ultimately expects is a formal written signed opinion by a certified public accountant. What that opinion actually states isn't necessarily as important as getting the opinion to the state auditor so that they can decide how to act on that opinion. So, for example, the auditor could say, we don't have the books going back and there's simply nothing we can do about other than litigation and hoping that we can get the books.
Mhm.
Or it just depends on what the CPA actually makes of the situation. But that's our main, that's been our main hang up is the state
Interesting.
the state has instructed me. They've given me, a list of potential referrals. I've called 32 different accountants and none of them want to touch this situation with a 10-foot pole. So I go back to the state auditor and tell her, I've called everyone on your list and none of them want to work with us. What other alternatives do we have? And all they can do is quote state law on what we need to do, but it's just it's not clear because the lawmakers who wrote those laws hadn't foreseen the circumstance we're in. It's not accounted for in the law. So both the state and us as a district are just kind of sitting here like hands tied. Neither of us see a legal avenue, moving forward, other than completing all delinquent audits. So that's where we get stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they can't give us any leeway or other alternatives, then where do we go?
But true clarity from either party, whether there's a CPA in, at least maybe they have the CPA can ask, they are the person working for the district, but clarity directly to that. What does the CPA have to produce?
Yeah.
Because again, we can't tell the CPA what they have to produce because we don't know.
Right.
And that really is a question, I suppose, best left to a CPA at this point. Is we need to
Sure.
get one on board so that they can approach the state and say, what
Yes.
do you actually expect of
Yeah,
this?
having a CPA on board that understands the legality, the state rules, the regs that they're enforcing, but what is it that we need to provide? And that's the clarity that hasn't happened that Jesse's been dealing with. And because we're such a small rural group of people and not having the information totally to be able to provide, creates its own roadblocks with trying to find CPAs. It's not valuable to them to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you said like worst case scenario, you'd have to produce for all delinquent years, are you talking about like how far back?
Yeah. So
2007-ish.
well, the last time that any paperwork was sent in to the auditor from this district that was approved was 2018. So
Okay.
we would be, according my interpretation of state law, and it's written pretty simply, like we're talking a few lines of text for most of these things. As far as I can tell, we owe the state auditor 2019 through 2024 at this point.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Just one other note there, and this is one of the reasons for our confusion, is the state had kind of pitched, well, maybe we can just say you reorganized the district in 2021 because technically it didn't have a legitimate board prior to that.
Right.
But again, we don't have any concrete answer. They said maybe, but that was more than a year ago.
And did you say they did not have a clean audit prior to 2018?
Our board knows for a fact that 2018 and prior paperwork is off by about 96%.
Okay, got it. Okay, so well, that's really helpful. Background. Yeah, that's going to be a major difference, like in terms of the auditing services that you need year-wise, even. We have a financial expert on our team, and so the best I can do is take everything and pitch this question to him, Jake. If that works with y'all, I want to just throw it all at him and see what he says about this, because you really kind of are in like a, kind of like a holding ground. And it is a challenge because you're interested in applying for the emerging contaminants grant funding, I think I remember from the meeting. And that is open come January. Like you're really wanting to move forward with some of these grant applications. Do I understand that, like in this year, if you can?
Yeah, the needs are necessary to start this, knowing that grant funding takes months to go through their processes, but we have to have all of everything in line and everything ready, that all state officials that review that says, okay, they're all in compliance with all of, again, the state treasurer and all of this, that now we can actually review this funding capabilities and their needs assessments, and they can then make determinations, which I believe are in our favor, but we just need to keep everything in line without having clear direction. That's a difficult process to proceed.
Yeah, we're trying to do as many things as we can in parallel, but a lot of it's just, we've got 7 things that I would love to get taken care of, but they've all been on the back burner for years, and it's just big question marks hanging over them still at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that's really helpful. Some of the questions I was going to ask, and before I knew kind of the challenges that you had, were like, if you have access to the records, like kind of these preparatory questions for if we were to have a CPA come in. I think I've already have the answers to that. So like, you have access to everything after 2018?
So homeowners took over the district in September of 2021. So
Okay.
the previous board handed all of their, or not all, but what records they chose to hand over to us, dating
Mhm.
back as far as 2003. But again, the financial records that would be used to produce an audit or exemption from audit, those are what we're missing. We've got the end numbers, but they just simply don't make sense. None of it adds up. And so, yeah, if we actually wanted to audit prior years, those, the raw data just simply isn't in our possession. But everything after September 2021, that's stuff that we generated and we actually have access to.
Okay. So that will make that kind of year, those 2018 to 2021, like kind of more difficult for you to get. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering all those questions. I wanted to see if I could just understand a little bit about the PER. So that is, what was the engineering firm that you worked with?
Forsgren Engineering, and his name is Will Koger, and Pierce Powers, I believe, is his last name.
Could you say the name of the firm again?
Forsgren, Forsgren, Forsgren Associates.
Okay. And
We have that.
oh, is that prepared? I know
Yes.
you said the end of, oh, cool, great.
So we have a copy of that, that's what we were talking about it early on, is that was sent to Quality Water, which is our ultimate option, but they have a copy to review, and it went to the partners and to the state, and everybody has a copy of that, so that can be forwarded to look through that, that preliminary engineering, stuff, so.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you're comfortable sharing that we would be helpful for us to get it on file and just take a look at it. So my question is, so that's completed, and I know you're moving, as far as your compliance stuff, you're moving towards implementation plan. That's going to include this funding work and stuff. But do you know, does that PER include the alternatives analysis that is needed for the grant application? Or is there going to need, will another
No.
study need to be done?
Yes, there would be. That's one of those roadblocks that I had mentioned. Having the ultimate option that the homeowners would like to pursue, there is some analysis claims from the basically Quality Water that don't come in line with, what their statements are versus what what they claim. And so there's some analysis that needs to be done to coalesce with their idea and what the needs are of the community.
Yeah, the current PER does touch on 3 different alternatives. The first one is just don't do anything, which means we'll lose running water eventually. Second would be to try to overhaul the existing infrastructure and keep operating it through our water district, which long term is probably not sustainable. It would just be buying us another 5 or 10 years before everything falls apart again.
One is you would, things that are missing in that alternative, which kind of makes it, but like, having a staff member, having staff that are paid, that are the districts, that are, especially part of special districts that do the maintenance, that do the, unlike Jesse, who has a full-time job that takes care of that, and some of us homeowners that jump in and, consult. That's where I was saying is that there's somebody that needs to be on staff. And although that is a alternative, it is a completely taking what we currently have and completely redoing it. So starting from scratch.
Yeah, okay. And then the third one is regional consolidation with Morgan County, right?
Yes, with Quality Water, which is surrounding the community. Literally, their lines are surrounding our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that the third alternative is the best long term. It's more expensive, but in my opinion, if we went with overhauling the existing system and expecting some future homeowners to keep it running, it's been 20 years, and it took this long just to get a handful of homeowners to give it a shot, and we've all come to the conclusion that if we were to spend 15 million bucks overhauling the old system, it's just going to fall into disrepair and there won't be anyone to manage it within a couple of years. The average amount of time that anyone has ever lived here is less than a 4-year board member term. So it's more of like, uh, yeah, people just don't live here long enough to make an investment in being a board member and making sure that the district and the infrastructure is maintained. So
Right.
essentially, we would just have to outsource the entire thing to somebody anyway.
Pay somebody, yep. That's his
So
manager,
just
yep.
consolidate with quality water. There should never have been 2 water districts in this county in the first place. And ultimately, it's our goal to remedy that mistake that was made 20 years ago so
Mhm.
that it can't come back and do any more damage. And we've actually witnessed in this county a previous situation that that happened, pretty much unfolded just like we're dealing with now. It
Mhm.
took 29 years in court. The water system went defunct halfway through it, and ultimately they ended up consolidating with quality water too. And that's where we've gotten this whole idea, is we've already seen a water system go down, try to reboot it under homeowner control, just for all of those homeowners to move to Texas or somewhere else within the first few years. So yeah, they had the same thing. They tried to rescue it. It lasted 8 years, most of which they spent in court, and ultimately they had to go back and consolidate with quality water anyway. So we're just trying to skip over the decade or so worth of legal pain of trying to keep this system running and just have it fall apart anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the system won't last that kind of longevity. I mean, we're dealing with it, just keeping it going for the foreseeable 5 to 7 year plan to get with quality water. Hopefully it's shorter, but reality is you got engineering studies, everything else that has to go into effect. So
Mhm.
those what makes sense for the homeowners is reality is we see quality water trucks all around us because they maintain. If somebody has literally the neighbor across from Mary, and if they have a frozen meter, they come out and they come and assess it. They have the staff, they have the vehicles, they have the equipment, they have the expertise on staff. So as homeowners, it's a relief having that somebody else maintains. If there's a water main break or a water main freezer, we have no equipment. We can't do anything. That's we're literally homeowners just trying to struggle to find out and redneck engineer it. So
Yeah. So what have your conversations with quality water been like? What have those conversations been like? And I know from listening to that meeting, I think his name was Kent. I hope I'm,
yes,
yes. He was sharing a little bit about like the investments that would be needed in order to be able to acquire Prairie View Ranch. So I'm just curious about like, where do you stand in that relationship, in that conversation?
well, only in my experience in just the last year, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last year, have they only started to listen to the district, to the board, basically understanding it. And that's why if you saw in that, I questioned he said his single source was like a master meter. And I questioned that, and the state backed me on that, saying, no, that's not the only option. Like, you can do it differently. And I questioned him that multiple times, which I'm sure is backlashed him a little bit, but I'm like, I know that there is alternatives. Literally, there are alternatives. So
Mhm.
Yeah, the basically quality water, they can't say it out loud, but they're opposed to consolidations in general, and it's going to take some work to kind of convince them otherwise. But the state law, like it's written directly into state law, the legislative declaration for the Special District Act says that it is the policy of the state to encourage consolidation and to increase efficiency,
yeah,
of taxes and services and everything else. So although quality is opposed to our project, or was very opposed to the project at the beginning,
yeah,
legally speaking, they really can't be opposed to it. So that's where we need to, it's more of a political fight at this point than anything. The law is on our side, but we'd rather not have to litigate that. We'd just rather work it out through board meetings and proper discussions.
Yeah. Do you all meet regularly?
With them?
No.
Oh, no. One of my questions actually before this conversation was to ask if you would be open to our group meeting with Morgan County.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be a third party perspective, so you may get information that they are reluctant because of the history and the dynamics of what has transpired over the 20 years. So as a third party, you may hear a side and then you can bring that up. And that's what Jesse and the board have dealt with and have caught them in their faux pas in their communication. So.
Okay. Who would that be? Would I be with Kent directly that I would connect with?
Yeah.
That's the one thing I still haven't understood is Kent is like the gatekeeper for the board that he works for. So it's always through Kent. Every conversation has been with Kent, and yet the board takes the information from Kent, but not meeting with the district.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. There will be a time and a place for board-to-board meetings, but yeah, generally Kent is he's their general manager, so it is his job to run interference and just bring to the board concise information, so they're not sitting there talking about it for 3 nights or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, we definitely will need to get to a point where law requires that certain discussions must happen in public between the boards. It can't be done in just one-on-one conversations and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that would be great. I'll follow up to get Kent's contact information because that was what my colleague was asking if that would be a good opportunity for us to connect with them, also get their perspective. I think so I guess my question is like, as far as applying for funding, I mean, everything's sort of like hinging off of each other because you would be applying for a consolidation grant, right, through those grant opportunities, but that would be contingent on kind of, the go ahead
The agreement.
right?
That would be like where do we draw the line in the sand for what is the responsibility of the district versus the Prairie View Ranch District? What is the responsibility of Morgan Quality Water? Again, if the agreement is that they are taking on the precedence that this is their system, ultimately, why would they not be the grant holders to get like you saw in that video, the 30 million that's available to them when they're asking for total just to provide for our system, 20 some million. And it's like, this would be your system. If you can't adopt our infrastructure, we know that in the engine, in the PER, that the infrastructure needs to be replaced. That's definitely a definitive. So if you want it in and you're the maintainer of it, you would be responsible per your standards and specifications. You're installing it based on your engineering standards, your engineering specifications, and your installer. So you're the overseer.
Yeah.
Whether the district has to get that money and produce that within the community, that's kind of like, well, where does it go from there? Like, if that's the case and we have a board that then has to get engineering studies, all of that, it's like where they kind of have that capability in-house. So it's kind of unclear on where that goes.
Yeah.
My perspective and what I got from previous conversations with health department and others, Quality Water, their district will benefit from the upgrades that they're asking us to do in order to give them the capacity to serve us.
Just to serve us.
They have also been basically excluding our population from their 10-year growth plans and shouldn't have been, for the last 20 years. So they're kind of caught off guard too. But their position is, their position is they don't need any more capacity in this area. And our position is then why are all your subscribers in this area seeing, 50% pressure swings between peak and off peak? So what Quality is asking in the PER is for way more storage than they need, for our population, and 7 miles of new pipeline that we still don't understand how they can exactly justify. So what we're trying to do, and kind of a to-do for Kira at the health department and I on a future work session, is to try to pitch this project to Quality as, we can't just pay for the entire thing ourselves, because you're also getting 500,000 gallons of extra storage plus all this extra capacity out of it, which you already need anyway. So we need some help convincing them that, that this project benefits them as well, and that
Yeah.
they're separately eligible for funding along with us.
Yes.
So what I
Right.
would like to see happen is, if we fund the project, the portion of the project that covers the interior of the development,
The
and
distribution, yes.
yeah, and whatever portion of the infrastructure upgrades that the other district needs to provide us capacity. But that's shared capacity. Both of us benefit, because we're increasing, by them increasing our capacity to serve us, they're also increasing fire protection capacity for this, for a
Surrounding,
12-mile radius.
yes.
And everyone else in that 12-mile radius except for us is a Quality Water District subscriber. So money that we spend should, whatever we are qualifying for and spending should benefit our population, but they're also receiving benefits, and I think they should be funding a portion of that.
Well, and part of that push also is the rural fire district, who our president is lieutenant on, has also been having these conversations, not just because he lives here, but conversations about fire protection throughout the community. So that 12-mile radius of what the fire protection needs are, and why people's insurances are so high, and why they can't, they're the supplier of that water supply for the fire department. So they're having, amongst the commissioners and Qualities involved in that with the fire district, about those same concerns. Not just us, but it impacts the overall. So every homeowner north and south, east and west of us benefits because they're on that fire protection line. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then, do you plan on having Kira doing like a group meeting to discuss that at some point in the future and do that whole pitch and everything?
Yeah, we're still kind of putting together what the pitch is going to look like before
Yeah.
we, invite Quality to hear it or anything. But yeah, that's kind of an integral part of this is, why do, what do they get out of it other
Right.
than just, 48 more families to feed?
yeah.
Yeah.
And creating roadblocks like IGAs, that if the district is absorbed, if Prairie View Ranch Water District is absorbed by Quality District, that the IGA is null and void, because there is no IGA between a district that doesn't exist any longer. But those are some of those qualification events that are required, which would require being spelled out for Prairie View Ranch District.
Mhm.
What does that IGA entail to a point until it's absorbed by Quality? Those agreements that are, we will provide this, we'll provide, X, Y's, and Z's up into a point, and defining those, which is another part of the grant application, is having some of those pieces in place.
Mm-hmm. I guess that was my next question, because we talked about this a little bit with Kira too. So like, as far as, putting that pitch together or making that claim to Morgan County, we were talking about the idea of like, is there anything else that, as far as like financial projections or financial analysis, that could help, that could be done, that could kind of outline that benefit?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that
that's the
is
part
in
of
the
the
PER.
They're anti-growth.
That's in the PER?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The PER kind of goes over if we try to overhaul the old system and keep it under control of the district, here's how much it's going to cost divided by the number of subscribers, and it's like triple what the same number of subscribers would cost Quality to serve. So
Okay.
Yeah, there's a cost. It would cost way more for the community, the Prairie View Ranch community, to operate and maintain the system
Mhm.
over
because
even a 10-year period. In a 10-year period, if the quality is, brings in these homeowners that are within this community, not only are they getting our bill that we get, but also the taxes that come with that.
Right.
It's a ripple effect. It's not just one linear. It is like throwing a pebble in a pond, and the ripple effect goes out to all of the community members,
Mhm.
which then helps with funding sources and things that they can do, because now they're bringing them in fire compliance. All of the things that come in, and it's just very linear, specific about Prairie View Ranch.
Right.
And it's because of the history. And Jesse and I have had conversations about the history. We're trying to break those walls, those barriers, and this is the community, but it's not just the community of Prairie View Ranch. It's the community all the way down to Hoyt, all the way to the north to Wiggins. So it's literally multifaceted within
Right.
the overall structure of Quality's, their entire division. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then some of that financial and like cost structuring is in the PER. So that was
Yeah.
one of the questions I had. Because we were talking about like if you needed even on top of the audits, if there was like another financial assessment that would need to be contracted out as part of this process or as part of this pitch with Morgan County. But I guess I can take a look at what is in the PER because I wasn't sure exactly.
Well, in the PER explains, and there's detailed explanations of what Quality claims, like Jesse talked about, their storage amounts. Yet those storage amounts are way exceeding the annual volume of water that this community needs. So you're wanting us to buy storage for everybody else in the community, which you benefit from. And it explains in there that this is an overreaching expectation to have this kind of amount of storage, when in reality you only need a certain amount if you're talking just the district. Just as it is now, just adding the homes within Prairie View Ranch, this is what you need. And that engineering report kind of explains that. So it's kind of like checking their box saying, hey, you're defining this way greater than the needs of just Prairie View Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. This is exactly what I wanted to get accomplished in this meeting. So I really appreciate being so generous and explaining all of that and getting me up to speed. I know for myself, my next step will be to definitely reach out to our financial expert to talk about your situation with the audits, get some guidance on that. Also reach out to Kent, which I guess I can just ask Kira for his contact and try to set up a meeting with them. And then as far as our process or, kind of how we work through our funding navigator program is we typically start with this screening call, determine if it's kind of a good fit maybe, or if there's kind of work that we can collaborate on. And then we would often do an in-person site visit. And Kira was mentioning that they might be out for your next board meeting in February. So thinking, I know that's your full board. So I guess my question is, would you like us to join to present to the board, maybe after a meeting with Morgan County and kind of getting some more information and present kind of to the full board about the assistance that we could provide?
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then what we would do there is we do like it's a letter of intent that would just scope out the scope of services that we would offer, and that would be signed off, would need to be signed by the board. It's not like a contract, it's just an agreement to kind of keep the guardrails on what we sort of agree upon. So that'll be sort of what we present at the meeting in February to.
Well, and that's why I asked the question about engineering services. Knowing what Quality Water is proposing, I've been involved in some of these engineering reports and studies and, give feedback to Jesse so he's the point of contact. But like in many cases, like technically our roads are private. Well, if quality's coming in, those need to be dedicated as public right of way. And there needs to be easements for where they bring their systems within that area. So there's a lot of engineering stuff that needs to go into effect, dedications that have to happen, that go to the county, that have to be in place before like anything can actually be defined. Well, defining that right of way may be in question because of, the previous doings of the partners and, previously, like defining true property pins and where the road is. We know where the road is, where it is, that's where we drive it, but that may not necessarily be where the right of way is, and dedicating it as public right of way. Which again, I know Marcy, Mary, and having that then also triggers other things with the county as well. So
I guess that would be like if one of the alternatives was decided on, that would be all a part of the design, right? The engineering design.
Yes, it should be. And that ultimate is having Quality Water come in and they have the infrastructure.
Right.
But again, those agreements have to be in, or that maybe the board and the district and all of that has to be in place to dedicate that they can come in and do the necessary construction to make this overall plan A that we all as homeowners want to be, legal, as we would say it, but to also give them the access, the true rights of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. This is great. Is there anything else you wanted me to like take away from this meeting before I've wrapped everything up? Next steps.
Jesse, since the involvement that they would have, I would suggest forwarding links. So we've had a Colorado News out here to discuss kind of the issues, and there's actually news reports that talk about it, so you can kind of get a visual of what we are, where we are, especially where you're located. So geolocated, so you can understand kind of what's been going on. And Jesse's done a great job as getting the knowledge out there of understanding, trying to make a statement of the problems and the stuff that we have out here. So I don't know, Jesse, if you have links that you could share with her. So
Yep, just send us an email to the board email address. I think you should have that.
Can you just say, what is it?
It's directors, as in the board of directors, at PVRWD.org.
Okay.
Prairie View Ranch Water District.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll send you an email, and if you could send anything you could send over, that would be really great. Well, thank you all again. I really appreciate it. I look forward to the opportunity to help you all or work with you in any way we can. I am always available, even by phone, by email, always available to chat if anything comes up. And then I'll follow up in an email and then maybe chat about scheduling that in-person meeting for is it February 13th, your meeting?
It's flexible. We can work around when the CDPHE is available and
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
Generally, it's the second Tuesday of each month, but again, especially working with outside folks after hours and everything, we'll have a meeting whenever we need to get this done.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, great. Then I'll coordinate with Kira on that as well. But if I have any updates on my end, I'll follow up. I'll keep you all in the loop with even my meeting with Morgan County, what we find there, and yeah, take it from there. But it's great to meet everyone.
Okay. And I can also put you in touch with Kent, or give you Kent's contact info. Just fire us a kind of an intro email and any information you're looking for, and I'll get it to you.
That would be perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Well, I hope everybody has a great night. Enjoy the rest of your night and have a great dinner. Good night for everybody.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.